It's the new Jennifer Angles podcast. This episode is Angel in Charge, Nancy Tovar. I am Anne Franco and this week's co-host, and I introduced myself in our Angels introduction episode. But anyhow, I am a Loretto High School junior, and I am 17 years old.
Right, and it's me, Aaron Sutliff, the Division Chief of the Protective Order Unit at the County Attorney's Office. Hey, Ann, how's it going? I heard you've been doing a little theater work this week. How's that going?
That's going good. I just got out like a couple minutes ago. But I've really been enjoying it. I do enjoy like when we're off, so I can do like mock trial, obviously, and speech and debate. But all my friends and like my family, I found families in theater in the least cheesiest way possible.
What's your non-cheesiest theater production that y'all are doing?
We're doing this one called Punk Rock Girl. It's like a bunch of 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s female rock songs, so that's pretty cool.
Ancient history stuff, right? Okay, well, let's get started. I want to introduce our first guest, our only guest, our guest tonight. And you may recognize her, and I think you might, maybe. Okay. Nancy Tovar is the principal of the middle school and high school at Loretto Academy. 2025-2026 marks her 34th school year in her journey as an educator. She started when she was like 5 years old. Nancy has held many titles in those 34 years: teacher, assistant principal, human resources, recruiting director, executive director of talent acquisition and personnel management, personnel administration, and assistant superintendent for school leadership. And easy for me to say, right? But her favorite is her current title, principal. She's a proud graduate of UTEP, where she obtained her bachelor's degree in elementary education and her master's degree in educational administration. Nancy and her husband, get this, Aaron, are the parents of 3 sons and 3 grandchildren, with one more on the way any day now. I want to hear all about that. So,
Goodness.
welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
You know how things are going to go pretty much. I'd hand it off to Anne, but yeah, we're excited to talk with you.
Yeah, I can get us started, and we ask the same two questions for every guest. And the first one is, who are you?
Well, I'm a proud El Pasoan. I'm a lifelong El Pasoan. I love our community. I love being an educator in the El Paso area. I feel I have had the blessing of many, many great experiences as a teacher and as a person that works with young people. And so I find a lot of joy in the daily work and working with kids like you, Emery, and with your classmates at Loretto. I have very close relationships with my family members. So I love life, and I'm very blessed to be the principal at Loretto for our middle school and high school.
I don't know if you had a follow up question, Anne, but I wanted to know more about what it's meant to be an El Pasoan for you. So you've lived here your whole life?
My whole life, my parents are lifelong El Pasoans and educators as well. My love for our community, this goes back beyond, obviously, it's kind of genetic, beyond birth, in that our family has long roots established here. I love how vibrant our community is. I love that we're so accepting of people. I love that El Paso is a place where there's opportunity.
And I'm super interested. I'll stop hogging the questions, and but I'm super interested in Loretto life. Like, what do you think about? I mean, I know you work there, so just between us girls, tell us what it's really like.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, Loretto, there's no other place like it. I spend time telling a little bit about my story, which is that as an educator with, a couple of years under my belt, and with a pretty extensive experience in the public education realm, which is where I did the bulk of my career in public ed, but I also had the opportunity through all of those titles to see schools and supervise principals and work closely with schools. So I feel like, I know good schools. Through great fortune, I was also spent some time with the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association, and I served as a state president in 2014. So through that work, I spent a lot of times in schools across the state of Texas. So I just feel absolutely qualified to say I know good schools. And so when I say Loretto is something special and something incredible, like no other place has this, I say that with all truth.
So, like, what do you think, like, has made Loretto like, what do you think makes Loretto stand out of every school you've, like, ever worked for that, like, people might not expect? Like, other than it being, religious and it being all girls, like, what's something that you find that you've only seen at Loretto that a lot of people wouldn't expect?
Well, I think, Marie, I think it's culture, and I will say this: the hardest thing to attain, refine, and then maintain. So when schools build culture, um, and think of it this way, obviously it could be a positive culture or a negative culture. When schools like Loretto um, work on culture, they've done this for 100 years. So it's nothing that any of us really can take credit for. We're just the stewards of it. We're just maintaining the fire. This fire was set 100 years ago by the Sisters of Loretto. So there was this commitment to educating young women. That was the basis for it. I think that other schools have really attempted to replicate that. And I think that it's worthy of the efforts, obviously, because we know the benefits that young women experience when they're in an all girls environment. So I think that culture is the difference. It's the difference, and it's just such a combination. I think it's one thing can't exist without the other. You can't have this strong college bound culture, but not pay attention to the holistic need that human souls have.
And then, do you have any follow-up questions, Erin?
No, I don't. But yeah, so we have mileposts that we try and hit, Nancy, to make sure that we ask you the questions that we want. But we have all these interested follow up questions. So the next one is Anne's. So officially,
Yeah, so how have you helped boys and girls develop a healthy self-image?
I think when early in my career, I really wasn't thinking of it in a intentional way. I think early in my career, I was just doing what a teacher does or an assistant principal does, which, ultimately goes back, as kind of corny as it sounds, to just loving kids or loving them in their moment. And it's through learning, right? I mean, that's what I fell in love with as an educator was just that the opportunity to work with kids. But I think as my career progressed, and I think also as my life experiences as a mother, I think my motherhood and my teacherhood, sometimes kind of come together. I see you all many ways as I see a child, my own children. I have a deep investment in you. I want the best for you. I care deeply that our girls are in a very nurturing environment all the time.
I'm interested. I heard myself say that you raised three boys, and you have many more daughters. In the way you're describing your work as principal, so I'm interested to hear. Um, the differences between developing a healthy self-image for all of the women and or young women that you're working with versus the boys that were at your house.
Yeah, and that's actually just it's a kind of a fascinating part of my experience too. Something that initially it intrigued me, um, which was working with just females. I've always worked with a mix, and and then I haven't been the mom to a teenage girl. I've been the mom to a teenage boy, but I certainly haven't been the mom to a teenage girl. And so, um, in many ways, I feel like I'm growing and developing just as any educator does when you're doing something kind of new. But also, kind of in my motherhood, it's growing, which I think that's what's so exciting about being in education. Nothing is ever the same. Everything is always changing. And so I personally feel like, learning to be a good, strong leader to females, I'm really leaning a lot on my role models that I have, the people in my life that provided me with such strong guidance. And so I think about that a lot.
Jump on Anne's follow-ups if she has any. I don't know if you do. We're super
Um,
awkward so far, Anne. We don't know how to be good co-hosts, do we yet?
I but I don't like what tips like onto like would you give about like listening? Because I know for me, like I'm not saying like I don't listen to people, but like I'm always like kind of stuck in my own head. And I was talking about this in this Lockhart's class today, and I was just like, it's really hard for me to just let go of my inner dialogue and just to hear and listen. So like what tips would you give to people who want to listen more and to actually like grasp topics and other people's experiences.
I I think that, yeah. Well, the world is really noisy, right? So sometimes to listen, I think sometimes it's even a posture, which is oftentimes sitting. I tend to want to always sit down when I have a conversation with people. I feel like sitting, the posture of it just kind of opens you up. The motion of your body stops, so you're able to hear better. And it is, I think the word intentionality comes in that, sometimes you have to tell your brain, stop for a minute. And I know what you're saying because sometimes, especially when it's emotional, like it's something you care deeply about, you're almost ready to like formulate your response or you're ready to have the next comment, as opposed to letting sometimes things kind of sink in and settle in.
Such a wise question, Anne. Okay, it's like I was giving us a hard time about being not that great a co-host, but that was a really good question. And Nancy, your
Yeah.
response is so valuable. I would love to add to the conversation though that it seems like eye contact also helps me listen. So if I know I'm looking someone in the right in the eyes, they know if stuff's going on behind my brain and I'm not listening. You could tell it right when they're looking at you. Um, but it's hard. That's a hard one is to give eye contact, especially if you're
Yeah, for
Mhm.
not
sure.
confident.
Awkward.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of awkward, okay, Anne, this is the question. This is the question I get to turn back on you. And I know you gave us an answer in the first episode that we did of the podcast. So maybe you have a slightly different answer or an addition or something. So the third question that I always turn back on the co-host is what challenges, if any, have you had in developing a healthy self-image?
Well, that's a good question. I think when you just said awkward, I feel like especially throughout like middle school and freshman, even a little bit of sophomore year, I always just felt really awkward. And I
Mhm.
was always very shy, which is kind of weird because I do all these extracurriculars where all I do is talk. But socially and as a person, I'm very awkward and I never really felt comfortable within my own skin, which sounds really sad, but at the moment I didn't really realize it. I just kind of thought that's who I am. And especially like first going into Loretto, which was totally different from middle school for sure. Um, I don't want to sound cliche, but definitely social media where you have trends of what people are doing with their hair, what kind of water bottles they're bringing, what kind of backpacks they're bringing. This was all totally foreign to me. And ever since I can remember, I've always been a little different. Not to sound like, oh, I'm all quirky, but I've always liked, like I always liked having, bangs and shaggy hair. And I always liked wearing like eye makeup. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it's true. And I didn't really realize it until I went to Loretto that a lot of girls aren't really like that. And at first I saw that as like an insecurity. And I was like, oh, but I want to be like that. I don't want people to like perceive me differently. Like one of my biggest fears I self-consciously is being having pitied on. Like I don't like people feeling bad for me, which is bad. I should probably like work on that. But I always want people to, not look up to me, but just, see me as their equal and respect me, not to see me as lower. So I thought, when I went to Loretto and even throughout middle school too, like I always felt like self-conscious because, I liked different nerdy things. I had shaggy hair and, I had social media, but just for me personally, I didn't want to, straighten my hair. I didn't want to get all these like cute little water balls. I just wanted to be me. But I think what definitely helped me was finding my people. For sure. I think definitely the first semester of freshman year, I was very shy and awkward. I didn't have that many friends, but it wasn't until I made friends with upperclassmen. They were juniors. They were my age at the time, and they really. I'm still friend. My best friend to this day, Erin. I met her at Loretto, and we're literally like the same person. And I think that's what I needed was just to find community. And even now at Loretto, since we've like progressed. Like there's like people that I'm friends with that I would never have imagined we would ever be friends, and we're polar opposites. But I think what I needed first was to, love myself, develop a healthy self-image, and find my own people. And once I was able to find my people and find my community, I was able to go out and, talk to girls who, I don't know, played volleyball or something like that. So I think what I would tell people was just please like find your crowd. And I try to do that when I see like freshmen that are kind of awkward like me or in middle school. I'm always like, hey girl, like I try to be that person that my friends were for me. And now they're all graduated and I still see them and I'm still friends with them. And going to Loretto, you have such a good tight knit community and it allows people to be friends with whoever. I remember in my Angels Ambassador interview they were like, "What would you tell like girls who are struggling to make friends at Loretto or who are shy?" And I would just say like, no matter who you are, no matter what you like, no matter what you look like, you'll find your own people. And I think that's something you always gotta, see through.
I'm just curious though, Emery, when after you have like a mock trial thing or a speech and debate thing, do you need to decompress and and because would you say being extroverted takes a lot out of you when you have to put it on?
I think it kind of depends in a sense. Like at speech and debate tournaments where you're going to, these like Coronado or El Dorado, where all these high schools, I do find myself as kind of like, oh, I'm not friend like this is gonna sound bad, but I'm not friends with like a lot of people who are there from the other schools and they all kind of congregate together. But I kind of just like stay by myself and I perform when I need to. And like my mom has always said this to me, it's like you like me as a person, she wasn't demanding, but I only talk when I feel like I need to. And I feel like that kind of just sums me up. And I'm just shy. I don't really have a lot to say, but when I do, I try to articulate that to the best of my ability. And, like, when it goes for, like, theater, I think same thing. I'm still shy. I have friends, though. I definitely do have friends, but it takes socially, personally, it takes a lot for me to go out and meet new people. But when it's for performance or when it's for art, like guitar, I'm like, I wanna share that with the world. Like, I feel like I was put here to share my art and to share, I guess, my articulation through mock trial and speech and debate.
That is amazing. I love that. Well, I'm so
Oh,
glad that's happening. We're blessed to be front row seat to it. I hope you know we
Thank
enjoy
you.
it a lot.
agree. Okay, so this third question, you ready for it? Or wait, maybe it's the fourth question. I don't know. The next question.
I asked that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then waving a magic wand, Miss Tovar, how would you help all girls and boys as they grow up to participate in healthy relationships? Waving a magic wand, Miss Tovar, how would you help all girls and boys as they grow up to participate in healthy relationships? I'm going to answer this one first and then throw it to you. So, how I would do it with wave a magic wand, I know Aaron said this in the last episode, and I was so good. I wish I said it. I was like, "Ah," I slammed my foot on the table. I was like, but it would be to help everybody respect women and be feminists. I think I write this in my info speech that I'm going to state in nationals for, and it's about the history of feminism and the feminist waves. And I don't make it political. I don't. I just talk about the history. But it's the Oxford Dictionary defines feminism as the advocacy of women's rights based on the equality of the sexes. Nothing in particular about hairy-legged women or burning your bra in the street. I think everything falls back to its image, but I think respecting women and just and not even honoring them, but just respecting women and seeing them as equals is what fundamentally would help healthy relationships. And, I would just kind of remove all these societal stigmas that are tied to both boys and girls and just kind of, have people like start with a blank page and just start relationships like that.
To just mic drop, right? And if
Right? And then I'm supposed to answer after that.
she even had the guy that shouldn't ready use but she's not playing fair.
Yeah, I can't follow that. Sorry. I don't
Oh,
know.
you
I
can.
say
You're much
amen,
wiser
sister.
than I am.
Amen, sister. And I think that I'm just so excited to see, how this all will work th- in the message for when you go to nationals, because I think that's great. But so if I had a magic wand, maybe because I see sometimes the really dark side of things just by nature of the stuff we deal with. I've been terribly concerned about the effect that social media has on your generation. So my magic wand, um, I know that it's not even possible to say we're going to get rid of cell phones. It's not a thing. But I do hope that in the future we safeguard young children, boys and girls, from the effects of social media. One of the books I do, Aaron, just so you know, I've done 2 book studies with parents through my newsletter. Last year it was this one, Anxious Generation.
Thank you. Yeah. What?
That one by Jonathan Haidt. And then this year I did The Emotional Lives of Teenagers. But I will say The Anxious Generation is an unsettling account of the devastating effects that social media have on a generation of kids. And so my magic wand is really related to that, that we put some safeguards on young people to protect them from an industry that really does, in many ways, prey upon uh, some very prey upon children at a time when their minds, their brains are very, very susceptible to those negative influences. That's my magic wand. Um, I think that the prevalence of anxiety and poor self-image, body image issues, many of those things stem from social media, and so that's the stuff I get concerned about, and I would love to fix if I could.
Well, I know there's a couple of lawsuits going on right now. That's one kind of magic wand. And I know that folks are doing a lot of thinking and writing in that anxious generation. I've heard of his comments on TED Talks and a couple of other places. And it's really driven policy in places like California. And I know in Texas, even in the kind of environment that we're in Texas, even statutes have been passed about public schools and whether you can have cell phones during school and all that kind of thing. So I just say all that to say that magic wanding is a thing, and you got to envision it to make it happen. So we'll make kids feminists, all people feminists,
Yeah.
and people will figure it out when it comes to some guardrails or bumper bars. I'm trying to do a bowling metaphor for social media and technology. So yeah, great magic wands. I'm gonna write them all down, and maybe at the end of this season, we'll do something about them, man. What do you think?
I like that too. I know you answered last time, but I would really like to hear your answer if you have another one as well, because I thought you had so much insight on the last one. I want to hear another one.
I got some cash for you, and keep talking, keep saying nice stuff about me.
Okay, good,
Uh,
good.
I so last episode, and I just real quick say it: feminism, addressing masculinity in a way that takes men outside of the man box or the sort of the typical way you are a man. And then the third one, I can't remember. It was very bright and very smart, but listen to the podcast. That was my third one.
Mhm.
But, kind of stepping away from those, I think that um, I would love for everyone to understand this concept of prevention. And so, I work on intimate partner violence, both mostly adults, but some teens. And the conversation is mostly in my work about after violence has already happened. And so, my magic wand is actually something that we're doing literally through the podcast, through a couple of other podcasts that I do. Healing Arts from the Borderland is one of them, or Justice Matters is through my office. Um, but it's changing the conversation and having a broader understanding of what even makes violence a an available activity or action at the intimate partner level, but just overall. So, like when you're talking about the way that you have healthy masculinity or healthy femininity, or even just healthy people, you're having conversations where you're unpacking. Well, why would violence be the thing that you do? Because it's not normal. It's not natural. And so challenging that, I would have everyone learn these concepts of prevention. Step way back. Let's just have positive conversations in the way that Anne and you, Nancy, have had already this evening, and in general, just thinking about like let's set ourselves up for success rather than holding on to definitions that don't serve us anymore. So that'd be my magic wand. And I'm not going to do the magic wand every episode, Anne. So because I'll run out of them, I won't have enough. So Nancy, Anne and I think we clearly had a blast talking to you, and we thank you for taking time on a busy Monday. We ended up going late, and so you were super flexible. I really appreciate it. But I know you're running Loretto with an iron fist. No, you're not. But it was so great to talk with you. And we thank you for your commitment to helping educate and empower so many amazing and great soon to be young women who are already young women. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you, Anne Marie. That was a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
Hi, my name is James Causey. I'm a social studies teacher at Loretto, and I am going to give you today's teacher hot tip. This year, I had the opportunity to be a sponsor for mock trial. I learned a lot, the students learned a lot, and I think that all students need to get involved in things like this speech and debate, mock trial. There's athletics, and then there is academics, and this is a way of exercising yourself academically. There were so many aspects of this that were just great for the kids. Public speaking, for instance. I think public speaking is really important and gives a sense of confidence. In addition, I would say critical thinking. A lot of times the students had to adjust based on the questions that were asked or the answers that were given by others. And so you got to kind of think on your feet and be adaptable. So, that's a real impressive, I guess, a quality that not everyone has, and you need to exercise that. In addition, the number of hours that we put in was astronomical. I will tell you that it was great to see students prepare. And that was evident when they did, and it was evident when they didn't. And it was good for them to be put on the stage where they could show that. And I think, they learned a lot from that. I mean, I learned a lot watching them. Just the level of professionalism that they had, and of course, the people who worked with us this year. You're on a team of 9 people in this case, and I think that's really important that everyone has to get along and everyone has to pull the rope together, and you got to be a team player. And so that's so important these days in college, in your professional life after college. So I think that's a good experience. And I think if I had to go back and say anything once again, it's just the fact that the way you're learning with practical application of knowledge. The students learned a lot from our lawyers, and then to get out there and actually get to be a lawyer, there's no other way to prepare that could possibly be better than that. So it's a great experience, and I think it will improve students' confidence in themselves, and that's going to help them carry them through life.
Anything else you want to add, Anne?
Special thanks to Jennifer Ann's group for supporting this project. Want to know more about the amazing teen dating violence prevention work that Jennifer Ann's group does? Head to jenniferann.org to find out more, and then follow them on Facebook and Instagram.